I'm here with Craig Doyle today. So, Mr. Doyle,
Yes, ma'am.
what was the state of Montgomery County when you left office December 31st, 2016?
Well, if you go back and look at the speech that I made on my last Commissioner's Court, I kind of touched on it a little bit. You know, the county had a AAA credit rating. Our retirement was funded at 90%. We were building up our fund balance at that time. We continued year after year to add a little bit to our fund balance. We're still using the dollars that we had acquired on our last bond issue and building roads. We were partnering with TxDOT on projects. There was a lot of great things going on. Mm-hmm. We were in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. And I wanted it made clear when I walked out the door, I left Montgomery County in a very positive position.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we're still in that same position today?
I don't. You know, I watch as they robbed money from fund balance to try to lower the tax rate and to do some things. I've watched how some of those relationships with the state have eroded. I mean, you don't punch the governor in the nose and then ask him for funding for projects. Mm-hmm. You know, there was a big push to do a 2-cent tax cut. You know, your county tax is not the problem. Your school tax is where your big hit is. And Judge Keogh, when he was in the legislature, could have done something about that then, but he did not. Mm-hmm. But doing a 2-cent tax cut for the citizens of the county sounds great. Mm-hmm. But if you live in a $275,000 house, that 2-cent tax cut means less than $5 a month in savings to you. Now, if you live in a $275,000 home and $5 a month is going to run you out of your house, there's nothing the county can cut that can help that situation. Mm-hmm. County taxes are about 16% of your overall tax bill. The problem when you do that 2-cent tax cut, it also applies to the commercial entities and the corporate entities that pay taxes in Montgomery County. And that's where the bills really get paid. I saw a report from the Forest Service just before I left office, and they were doing a comparison of cost to value ratio on taxes. And their study showed that for every dollar generated in residential property taxes, there was $1.16 to $1.20 service requirement. So your residential generally costs money. For every dollar generated in exempt property, timber exempt and agricultural exempt, which is really what they were looking at, there was about a 37-cent service requirement. Mm-hmm. For every dollar generated in commercial taxes, there was a 29-cent service requirement. So that's where the bills get paid, is in that commercial and that corporate tax. And so when you start talking about cutting the taxes on the bulk of where Montgomery County's tax revenue comes from, you're going to cripple the county financially. We worked really hard to get that AAA credit rating, really hard. And we're one of the very few, last I heard it was around 10 counties in the state of Texas that had a AAA credit rating. Mm-hmm. When they go out and sell bonds again, or COs, and they get rated by the rating agencies, I will be really curious to see where that bond rating falls, because that will have a huge impact on the interest rate that you pay on those bonds, mm-hmm. or whether or not you can even sell bonds. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of factors go into getting that AAA credit rating for Montgomery County. Could you just run through what some of the big ones are?
Well, you know, where we are in terms of our fund balance, what we have set aside in the case of a rainy day, mm-hmm. where we are in funding on our retirement, where we are in funding on our medical plan. We sat through interviews with the rating agencies, and I sat in on those interviews, and it was surprised them actually when I did, because most times the county auditor or the treasurer does all that. But the part of what helped us get that AAA rating was the fact that not me, but that the county judge was actually paying attention. They look at some of the things that are kind of you can't really quantify, but you really know that they matter. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of issues. It's very, very, very difficult. Those interviews lasted for days, and the county auditor went through a number of very, very detailed financial questions, some of which I wasn't involved in, mm-hmm. to get to that point. But I suspect that trying to get that AAA credit rating today is just not going to happen.
So there is some confusion that some people have regarding the county judge position. What exactly is your job as a county judge? What do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, the county judge's position is a county administrator. You know, and it's interesting because I was the only county judge that was previously a commissioner in the history of Montgomery County, which put me in a very unique position. I saw my role as that of trying to get as much assistance to each department as I could at a minimal cost to the taxpayer, and trying to manage those departments as best I could. And each elected official could do whatever they want. I had the county judge or the commissioners. There's a confusion that people think that the county judge is the boss of the commissioners or the boss of. They're not. They're not. Other elected officials act autonomously and they can do what they want. The only real control that the court has is on the budget of those offices. But you can also work with them. You know, in a perfect example, at one point we had, in 2014, there was this big talk about having to build a $200 million jail. Well, we got to look, and 60+%, about 62, 63% of the prisoners in that jail were felons, indicted felons that were waiting to go to trial. And I sat on the board of judges, and so I asked the judges, could you guys kind of help us out? Can we really get a push to get some of these cases to trial and get them out of that jail? They did an excellent job of that. The judges stepped up. I mean, they got some things done, and they cleared a lot of that out. Well, we're still operating in the same jail today that in 2014 it said we're going to have to build a $200 million jail because of the cooperative effort of the judges. And so trying to identify problems and build a consensus to try to address those issues so that we don't have to spend $200 million in taxpayer money. We just kind of work to get that jail cleared out and move those cases through. One of the best examples I guess I could give you. Trying to work to get the funding with the state to help the commissioners get road projects done. Working through HGAC with contacts that I had there, just trying to identify issues that needed to be addressed and find solutions to those challenges.
And the key to that was working with state and federal government agencies, not dictating back and forth.
Yeah, the county government is really nothing more than an extension of state government. And so we're in a county, quite frankly, is limited to specifically address powers that the state gives them. You can't. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes, in many cases, HOAs have more power than the county in some issues, which is kind of frustrating. You have all the responsibility, but you don't have the authority to do some of the things you really like to do. So it's finding those ways to find cooperative efforts with other entities and agencies, not only state and federal, but local. The hospital district and others that can make things work better for the community that we all represent.
Okay, so as a result of redistricting now, Montgomery County is sharing a lot of representation with other counties. Would you speak to maybe the importance of working with other counties?
Oh, yeah. Well, Harris County is the 800-pound gorilla. And when I was in office, and Commissioner Riley has continued this, we had a great relationship with Commissioner Cagle, who we butted up against in Harris County on road projects, on a number of issues. It was critical to have that big brother next door on our team. If you get crossways with Harris County on issues, it could be, it can make things very difficult for Montgomery County. I can tell you that during Hurricane Harvey, Judge Emmett called me just one day and he said, hey, look, we've got several trailers of water that we need to send somewhere. Do you have any place that we can send it? That's the kind of effort that needs to be nurtured. That's the kind of relationship that needs to be nurtured between other counties. And as Grimes County and Waller County and other counties adjacent to us, I'm talking about the west side, same thing on the east side. Man, the growth in East Montgomery County is phenomenal. And you're going to start seeing the same thing in San Jacinto County and some of the others. It's imperative that you have that relationship. Perfect example was our radio system a few years ago. We were on a different system than Harris County. Harris County chased a guy out of Harris County into Montgomery County and could not communicate with Montgomery County deputies in that chase. That's dangerous. We worked together with them. We were upgrading our radio system with the new system so that we could then communicate back and forth with those other entities. There's so many things that you don't think about on a day-to-day basis, but that what happens positively in Harris County affects Montgomery County, and same back and forth. So to have that relationship with other counties, absolutely imperative. Absolutely.
So let's say you had been reelected to another term as county judge. 3 months into your new term, the pandemic hits. It's something no one expected.
Right.
So what decisions would you have made in, say, those first 2 weeks?
It's a no-win. Because you've got so many people, you've got those that are pro-mask, pro-vaccine, that believe that's got to be done, and you've got those that are adamantly opposed to mask and vaccine. I think there's kind of a middle ground to find there. It's a tough one. I think a little common sense applied would be the way to handle that. For those people that believe they need to get a mask and a vaccine, respect that and encourage that. For those that don't, respect that too, but ask them to act in a way that would not cause problem or harm to the other that have other beliefs. Leave businesses open, but if a business owner decided they thought, if you want to come in my business, you need to wear a mask, ask people to respect that. And I know masks aren't comfortable. I don't like to wear them. But if a business wanted to stay open and ask that you wear a mask when they come in, let them stay open. I don't know that shutting everything down is really the answer. Certainly not poking the governor in the eye, and picking a fight over it. There are ways that you could respectfully say, I understand what you're saying, but I respectfully disagree, and we're going to continue to try to keep the economic engine in Montgomery County running in a manner that protects people as best we can. There's a lot of information out there about whether masks and vaccines work or don't work. Just use a little common sense, but try to keep everything moving forward, because we just shut everything down. Look at what's happening at the federal, at the national level. You get stores that are, the supply chain has been cut to the point you got stores with empty shelves everywhere. I would never want to see that in Montgomery County, or see an individual lose a business because they just got shut down for an issue that we really don't know that would have affected the spread of the pandemic.
Right. So how do you think those lockdowns and the and the businesses having to close their doors for a period of time or even indefinitely, how do you think that affected the economy in Montgomery County?
Well, it certainly has an effect. When you see businesses closed, of course, the county doesn't receive any sales tax revenue. We only receive ad valorem tax revenue, property tax revenue. So as properties are still there, county's still collecting property tax on them. Not going to have a tremendous impact on the county unless you get enough of those businesses closing that it starts to affect property values. If you go into downtown and you got a bunch of empty buildings in there, those property values are going to decline, and that revenue is going to decline even while we're growing and have a need to address more law enforcement, more courts, more roads, more of everything to address the growth. So, I don't know that we got to that point that it really had a tremendous impact on the county. It certainly had impact on cities and special interest, special districts like mud districts and improvement districts that their revenue is generated by sales tax. When a business shuts down and doesn't sell anything, there goes that revenue. And so it certainly had an impact. I think in Montgomery County, just because a lot of people just said, we're not closing, we're going to stay open, things continued on. Good for them. But it could have been devastating had we just shut everything down.
Right. Now, Montgomery County received like $105 million in the CARES Act funds, and then they've received another tranche of another $117 million, I believe, through ARPA. How do you think they used that? Do you think they how could they have? Do you think they maximized their use of the funds?
That's a tough one for me to answer from the outside looking in. I don't know exactly where they spent all that money or what stipulations were placed on a lot of that money. I do know that I've heard that there's an audit to look at where some of it's been spent. Some of it being reclassified and spent in ways that was really kind of not what it was designed for.
Right.
Buying pickup trucks for employees and things like that, I question. When you've got people that couldn't pay their rent, and some of that money that was set aside, I think it was $7.1 million set aside for rental assistance that was turned back, that now people are saying, hey, we needed it, and they didn't get it. And I don't know what the effort, I don't know if there was enough effort to make sure that people knew what was available to them. I know that a lot of the other entities, cities and the Woodlands certainly, have been screaming that they didn't get anything or get their fair share anyway. So I just I'm not, again, I'm outside looking in on that one. I don't know all the detail on it. So, but it just seems to me that there could have been a much better effort to figure out exactly what that money was designed to do and how it was, or whatever strings were attached to it to be spent, and to assist other entities that needed it. That was the county's job, to make sure that everybody else is made whole. Don't know that that was done. And if any of that money was spent outside of the boundaries that it was designed for, the federal government could very well come in and ask for that money back. Where that money comes from to pay it back is going to be a real challenge if that occurs.
Well, one of the things that is also currently being disputed is the fact that I think all of the counties except for Montgomery County in Texas followed the $55 per capita per person to give out to the cities whenever the county received their own distribution. And that did not happen. You know, the cities had to justify to the county the expenses they made, and then they would get a payment back. Do you think they should have stuck with that 55 to a capita?
Well, if that was part of the stipulation in getting the money, yes, because that could jeopardize those dollars in terms of the federal government coming back saying, we want that money back. You didn't spend it the way we told you to spend it. And where that pool of money, now that that money has been spent, where that pool of money comes from to reimburse that is right out of the taxpayer's pocket. And I know that in the last couple of years they've taken some money out of fund balance to get to the tax rate they wanted to get to. At some point, there's a point of diminishing returns. When you cut, and we're still growing, there's going to be a point where there's just not enough money to do everything that needs to be done. I lived through the 80s, and I lived through 2008 when I saw property values decline. We're in a great time right now. But having been through that and seeing what happens when you do hit that bubble does bust, and you hit that time when property values either stay flat and growth stays flat or decline, everything in that budget that I see is predicated on a continued growth. There's going to come a day when that doesn't happen. If you start robbing money out of different places to lower taxes and you're not preparing for that, it could create a real problem.
Based on all of that, how do you feel Judge Keogh handled the challenges that have been presented to him in these past 4 years?
Well, the pandemic was a big one. That was a tough one. And again, it's a no-win. If you mandate masks, you're going to make half the people mad. If you don't mandate masks, you're going to make the other half the people mad. I think, though, picking a fight with the governor on that one was a big mistake. Because the county does depend on state funding for a lot of projects. We need to work cooperatively with the state of Texas to make sure that we get what we need to get out of them as far as funding goes, and assistance in other areas. You don't pick a fight with the guy that you're going to go to and ask for assistance from. I think that was a mistake. There've been better ways to do that. I think this idea of we're going to cut taxes no matter what it costs. The city of Conroe raised their taxes 2 cents, and 70% of their revenue comes from sales tax. The Woodlands Township raised their taxes 2 cents, and nobody said boo. Nobody said a word. Here's the county. At 16% of your total tax bill, you can cut, and as I stated before, it's just not going to have that big of an impact. If you cut, though, to the point that you can't fund the things that you need to fund, if you can't fund the road construction you need to fund, you can't put enough deputies on the street that you need to. We've got some. I know that when I left, we were in dire need of a new forensic facility. Dire need at that time. I don't know that anything's been done about that yet. We were looking at building a new tax office. We were in that old library. It's not a very efficient, functioning building. We were looking at building a new tax office. I don't know that that's been done. At some point, there is going to be a need for expansion of that jail. Now, we went from 2014 to 2021 without spending those dollars, but at some point, as we grow, we're talking about adding a new court. What's going to happen? That's going to put more people in the system. So there's going to come a time where there needs to be a new jail added. It's going to be hard to finance some of those things if you just keep cutting without paying attention. I think it's imperative that court pay attention to what's going to happen 10, 20, 30 years from now. And there's nobody on that court looking at the future. There's no one with any thought of that long-term growth. It's all about what we're going to do to get elected this next election. That's a shame. Sometimes you just need to have the courage to stand up and say, well, you may not like hearing this, but this is the truth, and move forward.
Well, one of the things this court has been going towards is having a capital improvement fund, which puts a certain amount of money to each year in order to fund those bigger projects down the line.
Right.
However, they haven't been able to contribute, they're having to choose between whether they contribute to the fund or lower the tax rate. And I suppose that's part of the problem of you're collecting money down the road and you keep lowering the tax rate, then you're not gonna.
How are you gonna pay for those things? I mean,
Right.
at some point, that that day of reckoning will come when you have to do some of these things. And if you cut the taxes to the point that you don't, they may, I don't know, I've not really looked that deep into the budget, but it may be that they would have a very difficult time funding the debt service on the bond issue. I don't know. But at some point, they're going to have to sell bonds or COs or something to address some of these issues. I know COs is a bad word, but you've got a real small group out there that just attacks everything that the court does and always has. Sometimes selling COs it's a good business move. You get a very low interest rate, and you can address issues, spread your debt out over a period of time on small issues. On big issues where you're going to spend a lot of money, you need the taxpayers' input. No doubt, no question. But on some of the smaller issues, I think that's what those commissioners are elected to do, to make business decisions that affect Montgomery County in a positive way.
From your experience, what's the first thing that you think needs to be addressed by, if Keogh gets reelected or if another candidate gets elected to the position, what's the first thing they need to put their focus on in that county?
From the county judge perspective, would be the financial position of Montgomery County. To make sure that the CARES Act money was spent correctly and make whatever adjustments need to be made to make sure that there's not going to be a big clawback by the federal government. To look at going back to, every year we would always add money to our fund balance. They've been taking money from that fund balance. You've got to get this county in a position to be prepared if we do have a slowdown in our economy, if we do start seeing property value, because at some point it's going to happen. This is not going to go on forever. We're in a great time right now. We have been for many, many years. And that budget is counted on that growth every year. You got to be prepared for that day that comes when it doesn't. And if there comes a time when they need to sell bonds or COs and the rating agencies come and look, there better be a good solid fund balance there. The county better be in a good financial position to do that, or the rates that they're going to pay for the interest on those loans will completely wipe out that 2-cent tax cut. I mean, it will obliterate what that little savings did.
How do you feel about some of the candidates that have entered the race for county judge currently? Billy Graff.
Billy Graff, I don't know Billy Graff. We've met just in passing. I don't know much about him. I understand most of his career has been spent using federal grants and funds. Don't know that lends to a great deal of wisdom in how to manage county government. I know that the group that's representing him now or supporting him now made it very clear they didn't think he was qualified to be county commissioner in the last race against Robert Walker, but yet now he's qualified to be county judge. I take great offense to that because I served as a commissioner and as a county judge. If you feel someone's not qualified to be commissioner, they are certainly, most certainly not qualified to be county judge. I served for 14 years under Malcolm Purvis, and I served for 14 years as a commissioner. When I hit that seat as county judge, it took me a while to get everything kind of figured out. There's a whole lot more to that position than people realize. You're dealing with financial issues, you're dealing with healthcare issues, you're dealing with road and building bond issues, you're dealing with our retirement system issues, and then just the general operation of every department in that county on a daily basis. So to deem someone unqualified to be a commissioner and then say they could be the county judge, that offends me personally, quite frankly. So not really knowing Billy Graff, I can only say that if he's not qualified to be county commissioner, he's not qualified to be county judge.
Now, there's also current Mayor of Montgomery, Sarah Countryman, who's entered.
I know Sarah Countryman very well. Sarah has got a lot of courage. Sarah's one of those people that stand up and say what needs to be said. And that's what we need right now. People that will stand up, even though it may not be popular, and say the things that need to be said. And I think Sarah will do that. I get the sense that she's one of those that she's not out there trying to win a popularity contest. She wants to get the job done. And that's what I look for in candidates. Somebody that, I had a high-ranking state official tell me one time during the floods, Hurricane Harvey floods, the issue was about Kingwood flooding versus lake levels here in Colorado. Tell me, you know, sometimes it's easier just to go along with what people think than to try to explain the truth. Man, I thought that's the problem with Washington today, with Austin today, with Montgomery County today. People that want to just say what people want to hear instead of saying the truth. And I think Sarah would be one of those that would step up and do that. Mm-hmm. You know, it'll cost you sometimes, but it's the right thing to do for the greater good of the county.
Mm-hmm. Would you have any words of wisdoms for the candidates in that race?
Well, just be truthful with the people that you're talking to. I've watched in some of the debates candidates say one thing to one group and one thing to another, and it just made me want to point out. You know, it just pandering to voters is the most frustrating thing in the world for me to watch. And people, they'll figure that out. Tell the truth. Stand up, and when you make a stance, stick with it. Don't be wishy-washy. You know, and it may not be popular. 249 is a perfect example. I got beat up every single day over 249. And I had, you know, people coming to court, called it the decimation of Pope Highway, right? Well, and we just stayed our course, stayed our course, stayed our course. People were screaming, well, just let TxDOT build it. Just let TxDOT build it. And I said, TxDOT's told us they're not going to build it. In fact, Victor Vandergriff, who was a highway commissioner at the time, drove from Fort Worth, Texas, to our court on a Tuesday morning and stood there at that podium and said, if you're waiting for TxDOT to build 249 as a free road, it's not going to happen in our lifetime. He left, and immediately they started back. Well, let TxDOT build it. You can't. And I kept saying, there's just not, they're not going to do it. So we did it. We built it. And look what's happening out there today. It was named the #1 project in the state of Texas by the Texas Public Works Department. Stay the course. Even when you're getting beat up every day. I got beat up every day over extending Research Forest to 2978. The biggest gripe when we opened it was we didn't build 4 lanes. I got laughed at and called a fool for building Fish Creek Thoroughfare. And look what's happening in Wood Forest today. I was ridiculed for buying a right-of-way for the Woodlands Parkway extension and Nickel Sawmill Road extension. Look what's happening out. Look at the need that's there today. And these people that are opposing that Woodlands Parkway extension, right where George Mitchell had planned it, where he put a curb cut at 249, I think it's a shame. I've told Commissioner Riley, if you just build that road right there where it ties into Woodlands Parkway where it exists today, they'd carry you on their shoulders the day it opened. We saw the same thing happen with Grand Parkway. All this opposition to it. The day it opened, everybody was trying to figure out who was the greatest hero that got it done. People don't like change. They're afraid of change. But sometimes you've got to have the guts to stand up in the face of ridicule and do what's right and stay the course.
So, given what you know about the position and what you've said about the candidates so far, who would you support in an election in North right now?
I'm 100% behind Sarah Country. No question. I don't think that Mark Keogh's done a good job. I think it's put the county in a bad position. You know, Montgomery County used to be the county that other counties looked to see what we were doing. When we did the very first pass-through project that the state of Texas ever did, the greatest deal that the state ever gave any county. And they reneged on building that flyover at 242, took the tolls off of 242 that were designed, that were in there to build that third direct connector to the east. It was part of that contract. And they backed out of that. They reneged on one of the best projects the state ever offered any county. That's a shame. You know, there's just things that it boggles my mind to see that they've done in just because they wanted to take the tolls off. Well, I get that, I understand that, but how are you going to fund the rest of the project? You know, here you had an opportunity, an option. People could have still gone to the red light and gone under without taking that toll road, just like 249. They could still go down the feeder roads. It's purely an option. And these people that say toll roads are a tax, that is insane. A tax is when the government takes your money and spends it however they choose to spend it. That's what a tax is. A toll road is an option. You can use it or not. And that money then in most cases, but certainly in the 242 project case, is designed to retire the debt on the construction of that project and add facilities that enhance that project. They're going to be spent right there. That's not a tax, that's an option. But to take that away and then say, you know, South County had that study that showed that they have what was like $1.2 billion in road needs. How you gonna pay for that? Well, here you had an opportunity that they killed. Just to say that they killed the toll road. Well, okay, now what are you gonna do? You know, you got to have the guts to stand up and say, this is what we need to do. And I think Sarah would do that.
All right, so this election cycle has seen a influx in women stepping up to be on the ballot this year. And a lot of times in positions that have never been held by a woman.
Right.
So how do you think that impacts the dynamic of county government, and how would that benefit Montgomery County?
Look, we've got some women judges now that are doing a great job. Not only are they doing a good job as judges, they've got the business acumen to run their offices very efficiently. So, you know, and that's my whole thing. And it starts to maybe sound like a little bit of a broken record here, but elect someone that can do the job, that will get in there and get done what needs to be done for Montgomery County, that will look 10, 15, 20 years down the road and start preparing today for the future. Look, I think about what happened with Ed Chance and some of the things he did with the pass-through program that got things done. Mike Metter, his involvement in the airport, under great criticism. And look what that airport's doing today. And I don't care if it's a man, woman, black, brown, green, yellow, I don't care. Find someone that will get the job done and quit playing the political game. You know, for 32 years I was with Montgomery County. For 28 years, I love my job every day. You know, I felt like I couldn't really tell you who my enemies were. The last 4 years, it got ridiculous. It really got ridiculous. You know, I got attacked every day. But continue to stay the course. That's what you need, someone that will look to the future and prepare today for the future. And if it's a woman, she's got my vote. I think there's a lot of women that are doing a great job today and could do a great job for Montgomery County.
What would be your advice to the voters of Montgomery County this cycle?
Pay attention. Pay attention. Wake up, Montgomery County. Do your research. Don't go to the polls and take a flyer from anybody. I don't care who it is. I don't care who they say they are, if they're the Tea Party or the new Tea Party, the old Tea Party, or this or that. Throw that flyer in the trash can. Do your own research and find candidates that are going to go do the job and not play politics. Look at what's happened in Washington. You got a little group of people that have mucked up the whole thing. Washington's a mess right now because some liberals are just trying to take it in a whole other direction. You can see the same thing in Montgomery County, but it's a group of people that are trying to go further to the right. Most of what happens is most people are a little bit right or left of center, and that's where things get accomplished. Go do your research on the candidates that are out there running. Go find the candidates that you think will stand up, that will look to the future, and damn the criticism, but go get the job done and quit playing politics. Pay attention.